It's the Slam Dunk.
Yeah. Now, today I'm doing some work in about a month's time for a group of high rollers, which basically means that they're bigwigs, right? They're bigwigs. And so they asked me to host a panel, and they've asked me to give them a bio today. And I was thinking, oh God, I've got to write about myself, a bio. What do I do here? So I started to write this thing, and as I'm going through this, I'm like, this is ridiculous. I don't even want to write about myself. And I've become quite sceptical over the years about pumping yourself up and that sort of thing. We don't do anything special. We are basically, sausage factory. In reality, we work in a sausage factory, right? So I got a bit carried away, and I thought, why don't I send a bio taking the piss out of myself and this industry? So I decided to write the bio in a sort of satirical tone, and I'm yet to hear back from them, but let's hope that the silence is golden. That means they're going to put it in front of everybody in a few weeks' time. But here's what I provided. I want you to tell me what you think about this. Here it goes. This is what hopefully will be on the bio when they read it out. Being asked to write a bio on yourself after you've been in the media for 30 years is so much harder these days because everything you've worked for no longer exists. So writing a bio is like writing your own obituary. It's like turning up to your own funeral, but only after you've administered your own euthanasia. This is true. This is how I felt. The list of publications, newspapers, shows, news programs, radio stations, and radio shows looks really impressive on the list. After all these years, it looks really impressive until you realise once I had my go, they all folded. They were shut down, and they're no longer. Although the AM show, I want to blame someone else for this, the AM show's demise rests squarely with Ryan Bridge and Lloyd Burr. And I've informed both those blokes of their blame in this, and they appeared to agree as well. Yet, Duncan, this is the bio, continues to defy the breathtaking gravity that dominates the New Zealand media industry. Like AJ Hackett, he bounces back up, okay? And he now produces and writes and hosts a daily news and current affairs podcast called Duncan, Garner, Editor-in-Chief, live, as opposed to dead. It's a grandiose name. This is in the bio. It's a grandiose name that carries none of the influence within MediaWorks that the title suggests to the outside world. No one else works on it. Well, they did, but they resigned for more money and less stress, so they went to Radio New Zealand, never to be seen and heard from again. It likely suited us too, because what the hell are we doing paying someone, hiring someone? That's a cost. We don't do cost. So that was probably quite timely. So Duncan has to do everything, including watering the fake plants in the studio that, I kid you not, were repossessed because someone hadn't paid the bill. It was a relief because the more they were watered, the less they grew. So then I just pinched one from my mum's toilet, which is just over here. This is the one we have now. It's just from my mum's toilet. So that's not, we don't owe any money on that or nothing. The only help Duncan gets is from a couple of blokes who bravely, well, the first one calls himself Big Willie. I mean, what man would call himself Big Willie? Yeah, there's a joker called Isaac who at 21 knows more than Duncan and 3 times as much as Big Willie. Forrester, formerly known as Forrester, is almost now an advisor to the show. That's how far up the ranks he has gone here at MediaWorks. Sadly, there are no ranks. So Forrester might have that feeling that he's gone up in the world, but the only sign of that is a slightly better haircut and his overpriced Mount Eden apartment, when you now need 10 people in it in 3 bedrooms to afford it. Apart from that, Forrester and Isaac still get the bus, and until that's resolved, the chances of them getting a girlfriend remain lower or worse than my chances. Okay? That's the truth, and they know it, and they're smiling. The podcast was devised in the days and weeks after the collapse of Today FM, and the idea first entered Duncan's mind as Tova dropped the F-bomb, and he claimed that the pricks were deceitful. Since then, Duncan has largely hid in the corridors when the boss appears so as to give off the impression that he no longer works at MediaWorks. He's no longer there. Yes, he's become a contractor. The drop in pay for Duncan was so brutal that if you were on the DPB under Labour with 4 kids, then suddenly you matched his pay. Sadly, we think Duncan has more than 4 kids, and he's become his own one-man working for families scheme. Full stop. Okay. The podcast, live at 7 p.m, runs across social media, platforms that Duncan has despised for years. But when the world gets its news from TikTok, you either join up or you ring Mike King and get a week's worth of mental health sessions to help you cope with that. Before the podcast, there was Here Today FM, Gone Tomorrow. He was the host of the AM show on TV3, where he braved 5 years of 2:30 AM alarms before Common Sense took over. Before that, he's hosted 3's 7 p.m. Story, which went tits up. And he hosted Radio Live's Drive Show. He spent 17 years in Parliament and left before him and Trevor Mallard had a real fight, a real scrap. Trevor's got form, he knows how to punch. During the glory days of late nights and no social media, recording our every move, Duncan served 7 years as TV3's political editor, and you can read about that in Paddy Gower's book. If Duncan wrote a book, he may well have to be deported before it was released, effectively. He's won numerous journalism awards, including TV Journalist of the Year, Best Talk Presenter at the New Zealand Radio Awards, up against Paul Henry and Mike Hosking. I thank them for the brutal competition, but neither neither man was there on the night. They'd both taken memory loss pills so they could wake up in the morning having forgotten that I kicked their ass last night. And he won the 2017 Opinion Writer of the Year prize at the Canon Media Awards, but he locked himself in the loo and almost didn't make the podium. So that was a silly boy. That's starting to sound serious, but Duncan reliably informs us that there are so many awards that everybody wins one. And saying that, he's not won anything for a few years, which undermines his previous statement that everybody wins one. But he's Pākehā, and we've already won so many rights that we couldn't possibly be recognised any further amongst our peers anymore. It's just not right. It doesn't seem to sort of celebrate diversity if we give him an award. His 2024 highlight was making the top 6 on Celebrity Treasure Island before he pulled on the wrong snake. Be careful pulling on the wrong snake, he says. Teaming up with Christian Cullen to nail former warrior Waitangi Kopu in beach scrummaging was satisfying, if only to prove to the bastards that there's life in the old prick yet. But 48 minutes in one scrum was long. Let's hope the IRB doesn't adopt 48-minute scrums in the years ahead. But the one moment I will treasure is what happened to me yesterday at St Luke's. Getting fleeced by my son and his mates. I was at Tank, buying those expensive milkshakes where they are. And this woman and her 2 kids, aged 7 and 3, came up to me. And I said to my boys, I bet she watched Treasure Island. She turned to her 7-year-old, the shy little girl, and said to me, sorry, I didn't watch you. I actually didn't recognise you. But my 7-year-old just said, Mummy, there's that loser from Celebrity Treasure Island. I said hello to the little girl, and I pulled out my phone and said, did you want a selfie? She put on the serious face and said, no. No, thank you, I don't.
Duncan Garner, live.